It is that time again. I know you missed me. 4 days since we posted our last video.
I
So
always
maybe,
miss you, man.
well, thank you. I was going to say maybe you don't miss me, but you probably miss Ryan, who is kind enough to join me for today's video.
Hello.
Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Excellent. Love to
We
hear.
Today was the first day that Good Morning Football was back on air on the NFL Network, so it's football season.
I spent, probably the better part of an hour this morning just going through like the weekend's camp news and
Yep.
seeing who's been hurt and who's been missing time and all that good stuff. So it's already an overwhelming amount of information to try and keep caught up with. And we're like 3 days into it. So
Yeah, it's
great.
fun. It's a fun time of year.
It is. It absolutely is. Another fun time of year is talking about people's teams before anything happens.
It's true.
And that's why we're here today. So I've brought back the greatest presentation show ever. Let's talk about somebody's team today. Who's it going to be? I don't know. It's not number 12.
No.
I guess it's not number 11. Oh my God, it's number 10. Ben Sucks.
Ben does suck.
Oh my God. It's also Cody's team, I guess, because he's just going to leave.
Oh, I thought we were talking about your team.
I mean, no, that's we'll get there. Quick recap, Ryan. You're right ahead of Cody here. We've talked about Dylon, and we've talked about Walker, and we got a bunch more that we don't know about. So,
it's true.
Let's see. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of Cody's review, Ryan, I wanted to give you some time, a rebuttal of your grade, if you'd like. So, what I've done, oh God, let's close that. We don't want that. I've got a timer here, so I'd like to give you a minute and a half to
really
refute
that's
your
it?
grade.
A minute and a half, and you spent like what, 30 minutes?
Time started. I'm sorry.
Holy God! All right, so I'm not too terribly upset with what Ben and Carl had said about my team. I definitely did draft based on the future. I won last year, and I plan to be competitive this year and hope to be right up there again at the end of this season. But, we are a dynasty league, and so you have to plan for the future, not just for this season. So that's kind of where I'm going from. I don't know that I agree with number 9. I do believe I will be in the playoffs by the end of the year. I see myself at being, just above 500 by the end of week 5. And that's really all that anybody can ask for when you're drafting, because those are really the only for sure weeks that you're going to have with the team that you draft. So I'm okay with where you guys put me. I think I'm a little higher. I am the reigning champ after all, so I should have gotten just a little bit more respect, but I see why I didn't. I even did that under a minute 30.
Wow, look at yeah, all right. Well, I honestly, no, I did enjoy your team, and it is a great point that, yes, we are, some sort of quasi-dynasty league, and planning for the future is a huge part of it. And like I said, in that regard, yeah, you are definitely geared up for, year 2, 3 beyond. I'm starting to buy into the neighbors hype a little bit. Blame it on, t-shirt and shorts training camp videos and the like. But
yeah, I think that the Giants are there to start making a turn. And I think with neighbors as a key piece that they can really start building around. I was looking at who I might want to set as my contract players, as we'll put a little plug out there. August 27th is the date that has to be set. We were just talking about that in a group chat here just a minute ago. So I just thought I'd put that out there for the whole league. August 27th, your keepers or your contract players need to be set. That's the NFL cut down day, the final cut down day. But anyways, when I was looking at mine just a little while ago, I was looking at neighbors And he was one of those question marks. What do I do with him? And I do see that he's got a potential for a long-term career.
I think so. And yes, good call out. August 27th, cut down day. And so also the day to submit those keepers, both 4-year contracts and 2-year contracts. Remember, we get 4 of each, right? So
Correct. Yep.
excellent. Perfect. We'll hammer on that multiple times over the course of the next videos and all that good stuff. So, all right, let's talk about Cody's team. I've got his draft pulled up here, and I think it bears mentioning that Cody has been god awful in the past. A lot of that I think were just misguided trade attempts. Because when you look at Cody's roster, he tends to put good players together. I think things just kind of fall apart somewhere along the line. And it's not, like injuries or things like that. It's just maybe some goofy moves.
I wanna rebut that misguided trades. I don't know what you're talking about. I thought that the trades that he made were perfect.
I didn't have a paragraph of critiques specifically aimed at your trades with Cody prepared, but I think I could probably whip that up real quick if I needed. We're not going to get into the weeds. I've had a terrible track record of making these go way longer than I intend.
True.
Let's say this: Cody has improved year over year. In fact, he doubled his win total last year.
He did, and I think he's in a good position with what he drafted this year to even improve further. We'll kind of see later on after we look at everything where we have him kind of at the end of the season. But I think it'll be better than he had been in the years past.
Definitely, yeah. This group, I've got a good feeling. We'll nitpick a few things here, but let's talk about the first 6 rounds here, which I thought went extremely well. We've got Jonathan Taylor, AJ Brown, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, David Montgomery, and Austin Eckler. Up until Austin Eckler, I loved these picks. I think Taylor has a lot to prove still. He's got, a pretty good amount of mileage once you consider what he did in college, but I think things with the Colts and Anthony Richardson actually will probably play out in his favor. I was hearing a little talk on a podcast I listened to about their run tendencies and, continuing the Shane Steichen offense. Once they get into like the green zone, the gold zone, the red zone, whatever you want to call it, those inside the 20s, they're like the top 3 running offense in the NFL. So I think it's totally realistic to see Jonathan Taylor smash double-digit touchdowns. I don't know.
The only concern I have with that is Anthony Richardson has kind of been known to take a lot of those himself. At least that's what he did in year 1. That might back up here in year 2, now that he's had a little bit more time to work with his coaches, and they might be advising him not to take as many of those runs himself to preserve his longevity. So that could bode well in Jonathan Taylor's favor, but it could go either way.
Yeah, and the opportunity is going to be there. I guess
the opportunity is going to be there, and I just want to put this plug out there right now. Hey, Cody, I might be coming to you for a trade with that Jonathan Taylor pick.
That trade has been preemptively rejected. So thanks for floating that out there. AJ Brown, another solid pick. Yep. I don't see anything, especially looking at the receivers taken around him. That was the right spot. I think that's good value in the second round, technically. So great work there.
That was right for where he should be going in almost every draft, and right for how things were falling in our draft.
Yep. Tank Dell, I think it looks like it's quote unquote early to take Tank Dell here, but man, if we talk about the Houston Texans offense and the players that I would be excited about in that offense, it's CJ Stroud, who, he drafted, and Tank Dell, who he paired up with CJ Stroud. So
yeah, I really like that stack of Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. Now, if he went into the draft thinking he wanted that stack, he nailed it. If it fell into his lap, that's not bad. I think Tank Dell was a little early, in my opinion. Like you kind of mentioned, he could have had guys like Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, who I would put just a little bit above Tank Dell. But I don't mind it. Going on to CJ Stroud, again, I don't like taking quarterbacks that early, especially for a middle of the pack kind of a guy. But you have the stack, so it works. I like it. I'm not in love with it.
I mean, just to kind of reiterate that dynasty theme, if we want to talk about guys that we can see taking big steps forward in the coming years, especially if you're going to lock up a pair of teammates with that same thought in mind, I think it's great.
Yeah, it definitely works.
I mean, yeah, we tend to kind of overvalue quarterbacks maybe in this league a little bit. So, but hey, that's not Cody's fault. That's
no, that's just how it rolls. And I mean, you just see, after CJ Stroud, because let's see, in round 4, we're going back towards the start of the draft. So the next quarterback off the list was Anthony Richardson. I have both of those guys kind of in the same area. I think he could have still had his stack had he waited one more round for CJ Stroud, or he may have been even able to take Tank Dell in the 4th, pick somebody else in the 3rd, and then had CJ Stroud in the 5th.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, I think that's totally viable. But the way things ended up working out for him, I feel like it's, can't nitpick it too hard, I don't think.
No.
Let's see. Closing it out, he went back-to-back running back, David Montgomery and Austin Eckler. Montgomery, look, a lot's been made about what may or may not happen with Jahmyr Gibbs this year. It sounds like they want Gibbs to be the guy, or at least the focal point. I don't think that means that, it's David Montgomery panic time. If anything, I think we can see, a Jamal Williams goal line vulture sort of role for him.
Well, and that's been David Montgomery's bread and butter. He takes whatever opportunity you give him and he runs with it.
Right. So yeah, if we're talking about your RB2, in the 6th round or 5th round or 6th round, wherever we're at now, I don't know.
Yep.
And he ends up being a guy that only gets you touchdowns. Sure, why the hell not?
Yeah. Again, I think he could have had a little bit stronger of an RB2 had he waited on Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. So take a running back in the 3rd instead. Because what could have you had? You could have had Achane, you could have had Henry. So you could have had just a little bit better of an RB2 had he waited, and he still would have had his stack.
Yeah, I think so. Eckler to close it out. He's pretty old now in running back years. He's seen a lot of work, but he wanted out of San Diego for the basically the sole express purpose of not being the feature back and getting more pass catching opportunities. So this could work out well for him in Washington as kind of that 3rd down guy, a little less pressure and just opportunity to kind of make plays as a pass catcher receiving back. Again, it's hard to get excited about Austin Eckler, but
I really am anxious to see what he does there in Washington. I've loved him as a player through his career, and I kind of want to see a little bit of a revamp of his career after the last 2 seasons of not.
Yeah, and I think if he's not the focal point and he has kind of an opportunity to just be kind of the second fiddle guy, I think that works out really well for him. So
Yep.
yeah, I think there's potential there. But so yeah, first 6 picks, I was pretty impressed with it. Like I said, I gave it an A. Yeah, there's some quibbles with maybe reaching for guys like Dell and Stroud, but I think when you look at it on the whole, I think that's a really good pairing. I think if these are guys that you're going to hang on to for future years, that's a great way to go about it. So that's kind of where I was at with it.
Yeah, and I gave him a B+. I mean, it's I really do like it.
Awesome. All right. We get into the middle rounds here. Looks like Cody shifted towards the front end of the draft this time. Opened up with Jake Ferguson. Look, tight ends got really picked over by this point. I think the value for Ferguson was probably about what you would expect. I think he was the 10th tight end taken at this point. And I think that's real life value. So
I like the pick.
Yeah, you're right.
Although he's not on his team anymore.
Oh, he got what? Oh, man, yes. I didn't even see that.
He cut Ferguson already and picked up Dawson Knox.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I mean, I like that pick, but I don't like that, post-draft move.
No.
Preseason here. I really don't like it.
That was maybe the wrong way to go there, but
yeah.
All right. Well, that maybe changes. I'll try and not let that distract me too much. But
I mean, to talk about the draft, I mean, since we're just talking about his draft, or grading his draft, it's a great pick right there. Had he kept him on his team,
right? Yeah, things would be looking probably a little bit better right now, but. All right. So from there, we hammered the linebacker position. Quincy Williams, Quay Walker, and Jordan Brooks all in a row. I like it. I think these guys, Quincy Williams in particular, really came on strong last year.
Yep.
Who's the other linebacker in New York? C.J. Mosley, I think.
Is that where he is now?
Yeah.
With the Jets, yeah.
Mosley's getting a little bit old, and I think they're going to be inclined to probably, I don't want to say pass the torch, but at least probably lean on Williams maybe a little more heavily than Mosley. So that works out pretty well here. Quay Walker, they drafted a bunch of linebackers this year. I think the plan is they want to send some sort of message to Quay about cleaning up his act on the field.
Right.
Hopefully that's message received for him. But regardless, I think he's got this year to prove himself. They're not going to rush a couple of rookies in right away.
Right.
So, we'll see how he responds to what looks like some sort of innuendo about his ability and playing time. And then Jordan Brooks, who moved on to Miami now, I believe.
Sounds right.
He's going to have an opportunity to be the featured dude down in Miami, leaving Seattle. He's a year removed from, I think it was an ACL, MCL injury that maybe took a little bit of the wind out of his sails last year as he was recovering. So a full year removed from that and an opportunity to really prove himself. So I really like those 3 linebacker picks. I think those are excellent.
I think they're good picks. I had other linebackers kind of ranked a little bit higher than them, especially at that Quincy Williams pick. I don't mind the pick, but there's a few others that I think, could have been taken there instead. I think, and we'll kind of touch on this a little bit later. I think it wasn't quite the best move to go 3 linebackers in a row, but the 3 linebackers that he got are a very good start for him.
That's a good point. And even now, just taking a little bit closer of a look, I could see, like Zaire Franklin went after Quincy Williams.
Yep.
I'd probably rather have Franklin for
Yes,
sure.
I would as well.
Bernard, I see, went after Quay Walker. Probably give me Bernard there. But so, okay, I could see where you're coming from there. Yep. Scary Terry McLaurin, and then Cooper DeJean at the end. Thoughts on either of those guys?
Terry McLaurin, he's always been that player that you always want to kind of be the focal point of a team. He just can't ever quite do that. But looking at the wide receivers he already has, to have him on your bench as a fill-in player or a flex player, I don't mind it there, especially with how kind of things have been changing recently in Washington as well. Cooper DeJean, it's a good pick. I mean, he's going to be a solid defensive back there. Yeah, I think there might have been some other DBs there that you could have taken instead. I did see just today that Cooper DeJean is already dealing with a hamstring injury here in the preseason. So that's going to be a kind of mitigating factor all season for him. Hamstrings are something that just never go away when people tend to tweak them, especially at that position. I don't mind the pick, but it's, now that we're 2 months, 3 months past the draft, when we're looking at this, I'm not liking it as much as I did when he drafted him.
I totally get the hype around the player. I think it's a pick with a lot of what the kids would call hopium, right?
Yep.
We saw how big of a freak athlete he was. We know what he could do, especially in the return game. But that's a lot of eggs to put in the basket of right now a guy who's maybe just a special teams return man.
Right.
The Eagles have such a crowded DB room already. Before you even put DeJean there, who knows what he's able to break off in terms of regular playing time. So, yeah, I mean, as excited as I was before he was an Eagle, the fit and then here the investment maybe kind of kill the buzz a little bit.
Yeah. And looking at the next DB off the board after him was Mike taking Budda Baker. I would personally have rather had Budda Baker. Yes, he's older than DeJean, and so if you're looking at that, future, down the line kind of thing, DeJean is definitely probably a better pick. But
at DB,
when it's your first DB that you're taking in the draft, I think I would rather have the established guy.
Yeah, and especially when it comes with kind of more guaranteed production as a safety versus a guy that's, maybe a nickel corner or wherever his fit's going to ultimately end up being in that defense. But
right.
All right. If we talk about just the draft grade, see, now knowing these things after it maybe sours me a little bit, but I liked the picks in a vacuum. Looking closer at some of the players that were taken, around some of these other guys, and the Jake Ferguson news makes me think a little bit differently on it. But initially, I really liked these picks.
Yeah, when I first looked at them, I really liked him as well. I dug in a little bit deeper, even before coming across the Jake Ferguson news about him already moving him. I still gave it a C+, just because looking at the picks, the players that were picked around him that he could have had in those specific places, I think he could have had better. So I gave him a C+.
That feels about right. I was higher on that. But yeah, now that we've talked it out and I've taken a closer look, yeah, that probably feels a little bit more accurate. So that I'm down with that. All right, the back chunk here. This is hard because there's a lot of players to go through, and I tend to get pretty caught up. So, let's see. Let's look at. I thought I had this broken up by offense and defense here, so maybe
You did. I think you started with him defensively
okay.
in these rounds, or maybe you
Oh,
started off.
okay, yeah. Offense. Okay, so offense, we went Jaden Daniels, Tyler Algier, what was supposed to be Frank Gore, but did not end up being Frank Gore. Curtis Samuel, Robert Tonyan, and Xavier Leggett.
Yes.
So, Jaden Daniels, the lotto ticket quarterback, and the rookie. So, yeah, with CJ Stroud as the starter, do we really want to back him up with a rookie quarterback? I know there's upside with Daniels and kind of his skill set, but just the strategy in general, I would think you'd want to go with maybe a little bit of a safer quarterback pick here.
Yeah, I don't like the pick just because usually, all right, if you're putting two quarterbacks on your roster, you either are needing to play matchups with your starter, which you probably don't need to do a lot with CJ Stroud. So then the only other reason would be to have a bye week fill-in. CJ Stroud's bye week isn't until week 14, which also happens to be Jaden Daniels' bye week. So I really don't think that was a great pick for him. I don't think he needed to add a second quarterback onto his roster at this point.
Right. Yeah. I as exciting as Jaden Daniels could be, QB2 being a rookie on a team is just probably not the right way to go.
Yeah.
Tyler Algier, the handcuff bit. I don't know. Tyler Algier is the least exciting.
He's not handcuffing him because he doesn't have Bijan.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
So you're putting him on your roster there in a hope that Bijan gets injured. I feel early on in the season. So again, I'm not liking the pick there all that much.
Right. Frank Gore turned into. I think he went with Will Shipley, right?
I think so. Yes.
But again, same sort of idea as the Algier pick. He's really just a handcuff to Saquon Barkley, who you don't have on your team.
Who doesn't have on his team.
So again, probably a better investment somewhere else.
Yep.
Curtis Samuel could be a thing.
Yeah, he used to be a thing. Right. He very well could do. And again, throwing them on the end of your roster in case something happens, that I don't mind. For a wide receiver like him, I don't mind it.
Yeah, the Bills are going to need somebody besides the tight end and the other rookie wide receiver to catch passes, right? So, who that ends up being, it could be Curtis Samuel. We just don't know. So roll the dice. Why not?
Yeah, and he's a good safety pick. I mean, he really is.
Right.
Because Josh Allen likes his safety guys. I know he's got Kincaid already locked in as probably his top target. But there might be a check down situation where Curtis Samuel, just gets some volume in check downs.
Absolutely. Robert Tonyan and Xavier Leggett, the last couple picks here. Tonyan, is maybe the tight end until TJ Hawkinson is healthy. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. Probably not. So.
Right. I mean, with now having Dawson Knox as his tight end or his starting tight end, I mean, yeah, you might be able to play around Robert Tonyan for the first couple weeks until Hawkinson gets back, but after that, you're going to have no need for him.
Yeah. Leggett, I think could be a pretty intriguing prospect. Similarly to Curtis Samuel, they need somebody to throw to in Carolina, and they've had really good things to say about Leggett. Plus, he sounds like that dude from The Waterboy, which, I don't know if we can get points for that, but we should.
Yeah, this is a good dart throw. I mean, it's the very last round of the draft. You're taking a chance on a guy. I see nothing wrong with that.
Right. So, yeah, the offensive players were kind of, by and large, a miss for me. For me, a couple of intriguing dart throws, but yeah, I think we could do better there. On defense, we did Bradley Chubb, DeForest Buckner, Quinnen Williams, Hafunga, Melifonwu. I'm not even going to try the first name. And was it Kenny Moore? So
Kenny Moore, yep.
Look, I liked these a little bit more. I will say Bradley Chubb probably isn't going to play all year, so I guess he's like a permanent IR stash, which...
I mean, he's technically not on IR in the actual NFL. He is on the PUP list. So, I mean, there is that. But I do have a feeling that by week 1, he will be on IR.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where he plays, probably not before like December if we're lucky. Yeah. So, because I think it was the last game of the year where he tore his ACL. So, let's see. DeForest Buckner, he's got ability. Here's my problem though. You've got like all D tackles as your starting D line. And Quinnen Williams, he has the ability to get to the quarterback, but he's just another D tackle. You're hoping for like a 9-sack season, like that's like the high upside territory, So
or you're banking on that stuff points, which what is it, 4 points to stuff a running back at the line.
Yep.
That could be a realm of possibility. Again, he's a good name, but as that being your top defensive lineman at this point, that's where I go back to those middle rounds where he took those 3 linebackers. Starter and maybe supplemented with Buckner later on still.
Yeah. Yep. So I agreed. And at this point in the offseason now, it's not impossible to find, some actual edge rushers with a little bit of upside.
He'll be playing the waiver wire each and every week for that D-line position. It's going to be a constant rotating door for him. He'll be using the waiver wire as an extra bench, really, to stream that position.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, but it's probably something that you're going to have to do because, you got to
have to play those matchups. Look at the matchups and.
Let's see. Then we did 3 DBs with Hafunga, Melifonwu, and Kenny Moore. I like these guys. Melifonwu especially. I think at the end of the year, I think he had like 3 or 4 games where he went 20-plus points once he started to get the playing time in Detroit. I think that gives him a pretty good leg up on securing a job.
Definitely helps.
20-point week in, week out upside, probably not. But
no, you're not going to be able to bank on that each and every week.
Right. He's got the ability, obviously, and can make big plays. So why not?
Yep. And, the pick before that, Hafunga, he always seems to be in the position to make plays. I remember I don't think it was last year, but it was the year before, and it was end of the season, and I was looking for a win, and I had the other DB on San Francisco, and Hafungo is there, and I was hoping for my guy to get the points, but Hafungo is getting the points, and so I do like that pick. He's gonna have he's gonna be given opportunities to do things, and most of the time he's going to capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah, and we could basically just copy and paste all of that for Kenny Moore, who,
Right.
He's a big splash play. I think he had a game for Carl last year where he put up like 48 points. He might have done it like in back-to-back weeks. I think he had like pick sixes in back-to-back weeks or something like that.
Okay.
So, but he's a dude that I think is kind of like the heart and soul of the defense in Indy, and they lean on him heavily. So yeah, why not? DB's a pretty fluky position, so maybe you luck into a couple big splash games out of each of these guys, and you're better off for it. So.
Yeah, and I think he got some value with those. He may have missed earlier on the Dejan pick, but I think he got some value out of those two picks right there.
So I didn't like the offensive players we mentioned. The defensive players I felt a little bit better about.
I still think that there was, especially with that D line. When I looked at it using the standings the rankings that I went off of for the draft, when he picked Chubb there at the 13th round, there was 7 guys that he could have had that even at that position that he that were a little bit higher than Chubb. So coupling that with probably being better off taking some defensive line in that mid rounds. I coupled everything together. I mean, my grade for him in rounds 13 through 24 is kind of also based on the rounds before. So I gave him a C-.
I did have him as a C- there as well. For me, mostly it was, just those offensive players kind of were unnecessary dart throws at times.
Yep.
I think the defensive guys have talent. You are definitely going to be wanting some more help on the D line. But I think there's some upside, particularly with the DBs. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Let's see. So I had this pulled up. ESPN has him post-draft ranked as the 10th team. I grabbed Fantasy Pros over here. I'll pull that up. They have him 11th. I think overall, when we take a look at the starting roster, particularly, pull that up real quick. I think there's some pretty talented dudes overall. The starting lineup, the starting players, like if we can improve the D-line spot, like I talked about, overall, this is a really good group. So it's just the depth starts to get pretty ugly and could be improved upon, I think.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his, just the projected totals for that first week so far, he's only got one player on there who is over double digits in projected points, and that's his backup QB, who's probably not going to see his roster ever.
Right.
So, I think Cody, you got some work to do. You got some matchups that you really have to pay attention to and stream some positions and really be hitting that waiver wire hard and, try to make some trades. And that I'm being serious with too, not just, getting drunk and trading with me. Honestly, let's get some good quality trades for you.
Yeah, and if you can, probably go out and pick up Jake Ferguson.
He's already on another roster.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we dared to dream.
And it wasn't my roster. I didn't pick him up. I'm going to put that out there.
So there we go. Cody sitting 10th, question mark. Things are a little bit loosey-goosey. We've got, like we talked about the last time, there are already a lot of roster tweaks going on with guys hitting pup lists and, so make some moves, pick up some players.
I'm going to be optimistic for him. I'm going to say that he's going to just barely miss the playoffs.
I'm going
to put him at 9. I'm going to put him at 9.
I think there's firepower here where he could do better. If we can improve a couple spots, just a couple spots, I really feel like he could surprise some people. But yeah, to your point, it's going to take some master manipulation and playing some lineups, particularly with those D-line spots and whatever else comes up. So
yeah.
All right. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you joining me today.
Hey, this is fun. I always enjoy getting on with you and talking fantasy football. And
absolutely,
it's a good day.
We'll try and do this again. We'll rip through somebody else's squad, you and I. So excellent.
Looks like I got a little bit of a jumper behind me here. Somebody trying to get in some screen time.
A co-star. I love it.
I guess so.
All right. Well, you guys have a good one.
Yeah, you too, Ben.
All right.